Welcome to this episode of Nursing Edge Unscripted, Saga, where we journey through the history of nursing education using stories that connect the past to the present and then our future as we reimagine our teaching and learning. This special episode of Saga is dedicated to a leader in the use of simulation in nursing education in recognition of Healthcare Simulation Week, celebrated in the month of September. This episode is a first-person account in the words of Dr. Marianne Rizzolo as she pays tribute to Debra Spunt, a pioneer and leader in simulation. Let me share Dr. Rizzolo's words. When was the first time you saw students engaged in simulation? When did your school or institution get its first mannequin? Whenever that was, Debbie Spunt had done it years earlier. She recognized the power of simulation for educating healthcare professionals, and in 1998, she became the director of the 28 clinical sim labs at the University of Maryland's School of Nursing in Baltimore. Then she really went to work, co-authoring the International Nursing Association for Clinical Simulation and Learning, ANACSL, as we call it today, and becoming its first president. Her labs served as national and international models for student learning. Her expertise for integrating the use of clinical simulation within the educational curriculum garnered worldwide recognition. She toured numerous faculty and international visitors through the labs and provided formal and informal consultations to schools of nursing and healthcare agencies in more than 38 states and 12 countries, including South Korea, Israel, and Canada. The University of Maryland School of Nursing was twice named a Center of Excellence in Simulation Education by Laerdal Medical, an international manufacturer of interactive computer and patient simulators for educating healthcare professionals. I had met Debbie several times at Learning Resource Center conferences and other events, but I didn't really get to know her until Dr. Pam Jeffries and I worked with her on the landmark National League for Nursing Laerdal simulation study, designing and implementing models for the innovative use of simulation to teach nursing care of ill adults and children, a national multi-site multi-method study in 2003. Until then, only anecdotal evidence was being reported about the advantages of simulation, but it needed to be backed up with well-designed and executed research. Debbie was one of the first people selected to participate in the study and was clearly the most experienced. 7 other faculty members from schools across the country were selected. Debbie never flaunted her expertise, but provided leadership in her own quiet way. The group of 8 strangers developed quickly into a close-knit family with Debbie as the big sister. She was a very private person and rarely talked about herself, but she loved to talk about her daughter, Ellen. In 2006, as the study was in its final phases, we decided to use the NLN's Technology Conference to disseminate the outcomes of the study and to hold that conference at the University of Maryland. Debbie was thrilled that we were using her school where she earned her baccalaureate and master's degrees and where she was coming close to completing her DNP program. She welcomed all the attendees and was in perpetual motion during the event, speaking from the podium and providing tours of her labs. A few short months later, Debbie learned that her cancer had returned and further treatment was futile. When Tor Laerdal, chairman and CEO of Laerdal Medical, became aware that Debbie was terminally ill, he contacted the NLN to establish a way to honor all that Debbie had done for simulation and nursing. I visited Debbie just a few days before she died to tell her that a lecture was being established in her name. She was all dressed up in her cap and gown. She was so proud of that doctorate and thrilled and honored that her contributions would be recognized every year at the NLN Summit with a lecture provided by others who have had a lasting impact on the evolution of the art and science of simulation. Following Dr. Spunt's death at the age of 50 in March of 2007, the school named the labs in her memory and established the Debra L. Spunt Clinical Simulation Practice and Research Endowment, which allows the University of Maryland School of Nursing to remain on the cutting edge of simulation education. Everyone who knew Debbie has very special memories of her and her impact on their life and work in simulation. Mine is seeing her at her induction into the Academy of Nursing. She was so proud to have her daughter Ellen with her on such a special day. My other special memory is bittersweet, seeing her face light up when I told her about the endowed lecture funded by Laerdal that would carry her name. When I asked Debbie to select the first person to deliver the Spunt lecture, she quickly replied, "Pam, of course." Then, from her bed, she pointed to a small framed picture of her and Pam in full finery, taken at the Academy induction ceremony. She told me to give the picture to Pam after she delivered the first Spunt lecture. 6 months later, I did so from the podium of the NLN Summit, fighting back tears. While there is no question that Debbie's pioneering efforts and leadership brought simulation to the forefront, I think it was her warm personality and giving spirit that was equally important. She was one of the kindest and most generous people I have ever known. She was quiet and unassuming and always willing to share whatever she learned with others. All you had to do was ask or let her know you were struggling. Debbie recognized the benefits of simulation early on, and the art and science advanced more quickly because Debbie was there, freely sharing her knowledge during the earliest days of simulation's use in nursing education, cheering everyone on. Every new innovation, especially in education, needs someone like Dr. Spunt so that the diffusion of innovation cycle accelerates newly found knowledge about the best ways to educate our students and find its way to the educator toolbox quickly with an outcome of better educated students and better patient care. Thank you for all you did to lead and inspire us, Dr. Debra Spunt. You touched our minds and our hearts, and we miss you still. And thank you, Dr. Marianne Rizzolo, for your wonderful accounting of Debra L. Spunt. And so the saga continues, and may our saga continue as we bring to a close this episode of Nursing Edge Unscripted, Saga. Thank you for joining us, and remember, good teaching doesn't just happen. Find your fit, push the boundaries, and celebrate the ahas.
Welcome to the 2021 Debra Spunt Lecture. Please welcome to the stage the 2021 lecturer, Dr. Mary Fay, Associate Dean for the BSN programs at the George Washington University School of Nursing in Washington, D.C., Principal Faculty for the Center of Medical Simulation in Boston.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, that was such a beautiful tribute, wasn't it, to such an extraordinary person. And I was very fortunate that in 2006, I happened to be a graduate student doing a postmaster certificate in education. And through a series of happy accidents, I ended up doing a practicum in the simulation labs at the University of Maryland. And Debra Spunt became my first mentor in simulation. And I don't think either one of us, clearly neither of us, had any idea where that would lead when we started that endeavor together. But I like to think she's smiling down on us today. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here this morning. You know, I think in the busy lives that we lead, our time is the most precious resource we have. And if that's true, then taking the time to share our attention with each other is really quite a gift. And so I want to make sure that this morning the presence that we have here together with each other is as high a quality presence as it can be. And so I'm going to invite you all to join me in about a 90-second mindfulness activity to bring us all here and shut out all the rest of it. Now, before we do that, I'm going to ask you to do something really difficult. I'm going to ask you to divorce yourself from your devices just for like about 30 minutes, if you could do that. And I don't even mean like turn them upside down and put them in your lap, like slide them into your bag so they're not even in contact with your body. I know how hard this is. You know, there was research done at Microsoft that showed that the average person checks their cell phone every 6 minutes all day long. Guilty. But if you could put your devices away, the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is put both feet flat on the floor and kind of scooch back in your chair so you can really feel that chair supporting your legs and your back, and roll your shoulders back, sit up nice and straight, rest your arms in your laps. And I just want you to look forward, not really at anything, just kind of a soft focus. I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And do that again. And this time as you breathe in, I want you to feel your chest rise, your lungs expand. And as you breathe out, feel how everything just relaxes. Another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And one more time. Deep breath in and breathe out, relax. All right. I needed that too. Let's get started. So some people in the room know my work, and they know me as a debriefer. And so it seems logical to say then that I talk for a living, and I teach other people how to talk for a living. But as I reflect on what debriefing really is, it really isn't about talking. It's really about listening. And as I think about the debriefing leaders of our time who influenced me, Jenny Rudolph, Walter Epic, Dan Raymer, and when I reflect back on me as a novice debriefer and me watching them, certainly I paid attention to the words that they said. But more than that, I noticed the intensity of their listening. They really listened to what their learners were saying. They were so connected to their learners, trying to understand what their learners needed from them. And it was the listening part that was so interesting to me. And I believe now that the transition from proficient debriefer to expert debriefer is that moment when I stop worrying about the words I'm going to say, and all of my energies as a debriefer go into listening to my learners. So I don't talk for a living, I listen for a living. And that's what I really want to talk about today. Certainly we'll be talking about dialogue, but I want to talk about the listening side of dialogue, about listening to understand. And to do that, what we're first going to do is take a little journey back in time, because as I was preparing for this talk, I got off on, one of those little academic tangents that we all do when we're doing a literature search. But I ended up reading a series of articles that talked about the coevolution of human society and human language. And it became so clear to me that without our incredible ability to communicate, and because of that collaborate, because of that, we have become the dominant species. And so I want to spend some time thinking about that. We're going to do a little bit around listening styles. I hope that by the end of the talk, you'll have some idea of what your preferred listening style is. But then we'll talk about how different situations demand different kinds of listening. And finally, we're going to tie that all back to resilience. Because what we're really talking about here today is how that connection that allows us to collaborate makes us stronger, especially in the face of adversity. And that's the definition of resilience. Resilience is positive adaptation in the face of adversity. It doesn't just mean hanging on by your fingernails and hoping everything works out okay. That's not resilience. Resilience is facing adversity and coming out stronger. It's not even just bouncing back from adversity, it's bouncing past adversity. And if we are not in a time of adversity now, then I don't know what a time of adversity is. So let's take that journey back. About 2 million years ago, there was, in evolutionary terms, a rapid expansion in the size of the human brain. Our brains about tripled in size at that time, about 2 million years ago. And this was the time when we were really starting to band together for cooperative hunting. And when our brains tripled in size, most of that new cognitive real estate was devoted to the generation of and the understanding of language. And as our language improved, we became better hunters because now we could coordinate our actions, we could collaborate. We could accomplish, in a band of us collaborating together, what one individual could not possibly accomplish on their own. And so throughout the millennia now, evolution has favored people like that, people who created strong social bonds that made them stronger as a community. And I believe that's how we came to be what we are today. These people who can collaborate to do incredible things. And it might have started out with harnessing fire and inventing the wheel. But then we built the Roman aqueducts. We built the Egyptian pyramids. We built New York City. We have ships that go to different planets. All of that happened because people connected with each other in a meaningful way. They listened to each other, and they listened to people who thought differently than them. Something we're not so good at today. But evolution now has selected us to be these people who are born to connect. When we are connected, we are in our natural state. When we are disconnected, we're just not right. So let's watch this video about that.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing. It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
You know, in the words of Brene Brown, we are neurobiologically wired for connection. You know, and we've actually known this for a long time. The great teacher Aristotle said this thousands of years ago when he said the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. In my head, I like to translate that into none of us is as smart as all of us. And this has actually been borne out in recent research from, of all people, Google. So Google, leadership at Google asked themselves the question, why are some of our teams so productive and some of our other teams not so much? So they actually did a multi-year qualitative study where they interviewed people from the superior teams and the people from the OK teams. And there was one feature of those super productive, super creative teams that bubbled to the top. And that feature was that those teams felt psychologically safe. And what that meant, because they were psychologically safe, was that every member on that team felt that they had a voice. They felt heard. They felt free to express their ideas. They felt free to push back against the status quo. They felt free to question when the whole team was going in one direction. They were the ones that felt free to say, hey, hang on one second, guys, is this really the right direction? And so what it really comes down to with the creative Google teams is they listen to each other and they invite voices. You know, but now I'm puzzled because I always hear people say we are more connected now than we've ever been in the history of humanity. I'm not sure that that's really working. You know, when outrage has become our national pastime, when I can look at something that some stranger sends me on my phone and I can look at that and call him an idiot and there's no social consequences for that, when this is my idea of sharing my thoughts with other human beings, I don't know, you know, it just seems so solitary to me. Because I think what's missing here is no one's listening. So let's turn our attention to listening now. And I want to think about this in the context of listening to understand. And listening to understand does not mean listening to agree necessarily. You can listen to another person's point of view with curiosity and respect and never quite come around to their way of thinking, and that's okay. You know, imagine that it's budget time at my university and I ask my dean for a certain piece of equipment for the simulation lab because I really believe that this is going to help my learners achieve their learning outcomes better. And my dean listens to me and says, okay, Mary, I got it, thanks. And then the budget comes out and I only got 25% of the money that I asked for. Well, clearly I'm not going to be too happy about that. So I asked for a meeting with the dean. And I go to the dean and I say, you know, thought we were on the same page with this. I'm a little bit surprised that when the budget came out I didn't get the money for this. What's up? And she explains to me, maybe it was something like, you know, Mary, there was this other program that I really wanted to invest in that I believe is going to help our most at-risk students be successful in school. And that's actually much more in line with the strategic plan of the school and the university than your project. Your project was important, I just can't do everything. So now I understand. I probably don't agree, but I understand. I understand the complexity of the decision she was making. I understand why she made the decision. And here's the great thing about understanding. When I understand, there's no room for outrage. There's no room for the meeting after the meeting in the family lounge about how upset I am because now I understand. So let's think about listening for understanding. And one other thing I want to ask us all to do here now also is we have spent the last couple days, all of us here, figuring out how we can be better educators for our students. How do I deliver material better? How do I make my admissions process more diverse and inclusive? We've thought always about the students. From now on, I want us to think about our nurse educator community of practice because we need to hold each other up in these difficult times if we're going to be resilient and come out on the other side better than we were when we started. So just for today, let's think about us, your micro community of practice where you work, and the macro community of practice of all of us who are here together today. We're going to look at some listening styles. We'll see if you can identify your own style. And then we're going to do a couple little simulations where we can play around with listening styles a little bit. All right, let's look at different styles of listening. See if you can figure out who you are in here. If you're the person who during a conversation is like, could you get to the point, please? I got some stuff to do here. And people start to wander in the conversations. You're like, oh my God, now we have to hear about all this stuff. And you're just like, I want to identify the problem. I want to fix it. You might be a task-oriented listener. Now I feel like I'm doing Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck if. Okay. If when you're listening, you're the one who's always listening for inaccuracies and inconsistencies, those kind of people who will nitpick us to death and be like, that's not what you said 3 months ago. But these are the people that you want to have, like when you're on rounds with a really complicated patient and you're trying to figure out what's going on, because they're the ones that are going to remember that 3 days ago the potassium was this and we did this and that's how we treated that. If you're that kind of a person, you are probably a critical listener. If when you're listening in a complicated situation, you're one of those people who wants to gather all the data before you make a judgment, you stay completely objective until you've weighed all sides, because your primary goal in any situation when you're in a dialogue with other people is to be fair, then you're probably an analytical listener. If when you're in dialogue with someone, it just makes you feel good to be connected to another human being, and you find yourself concerned with their mood and their emotions, are they happy, are they okay, in addition to listening to the message, you are probably a relational listener. Okay, let's figure out if you guys have identified what you think your baseline style is. Here's where you're allowed to get your phones back out again. We're going to do some poll everywhere. If you've never used poll everywhere before, you use the texting function on your phone, and where you would normally put your friend's name or a phone number, you're going to put in the number 37607. And then down in the message part, you're going to type in Mary Faye 681. It does not have to be all caps. But be careful you don't spell my name Mary Fry, because that won't work. And then you're going to hit send, and then you should get a message back that you're in. I'm just going to pause for a moment until people get settled. I'm sorry I can't help with all technical problems today, so I hope you guys can get in. Can I get a thumbs up as people are getting in messages? Okay, great. All right, I'm going to give this about 10 more seconds. All right, I always like to know who I'm hanging out with. So, whoops. Oh, my sister's response is still in there. All right, just pick out A, B, C, or D. What is your preferred default listening style? Oh, very interesting. Got a lot of task-oriented listeners. Got a lot of relational listeners. A couple of critical listeners, some analytical listeners. Task-oriented listeners, that is my tribe. When I'm in a conversation with you, please do not mess around. I don't need to know your entire family history. Just get to the point, please. That is so me. At my previous job, my boss used to call me the roving ninja of getting stuff done. Because I like to bring things across the finish line, right? We're nurses. We got stuff to do. I see we also have a lot of relational listeners, and I guess in a room full of nurses, we shouldn't be too surprised about that either, should we? Okay, so we all have our default listening style. But my default listening style of like, come on, get to the point, I got stuff to do here, it doesn't work in every circumstance. And so different circumstances demand us to listen differently. Sometimes we listen with a problem-solving orientation, sometimes it's with a relational orientation. Sometimes a situation is so complicated. Like, think about those situations in your school, I know we have them, where we have a very borderline student who actually failed a course, and yet, could we figure out something to do to help this person pass this course? That's a complicated question that comes up. That really deserves some analytical listening. So here's what we're going to do next. We are going to do a little simulation. And in the simulations that I do, I'm going to turn around, and then when I come back, I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you guys to think about what style of listening does this situation demand? And it can be any one of the four. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, here's the first simulation. Imagine you run into me in the Xerox room at the nursing school. And you walk in and I say to you, oh, I just had a feedback conversation with a student. It went so badly. She is so upset. She says she's going to quit nursing school. Oh. Okay, what kind of listening style do I need? Do I need task-oriented, critical, analytical, or relational? Vote. Wow. All right, we got 95% relational, a little bit of analytical. So, you know, I am totally with you guys on the relational thing. When you see somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, I feel so horrible. What they mostly need is a response that's something like, wow, this looks like it was really bad for you. You seem like you want to talk about it, let's talk. That's a relational response. Let's think about if she runs into Mary Faye, the task-oriented listener, with, oh my God, I feel so bad. I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, you are kind of mean. So it's not surprising that happened. You know, imagine if she gets a critical listening response, which might be something along the lines of, look, I hear what you're saying, but you went to that feedback workshop a couple weeks ago. I've seen you give feedback to other students, and you give feedback fine. It was probably just that student. You know, and often we do that in an attempt to make people feel better, don't we? But that's not really what this person needs. Analytical listening, you know, I think it's really interesting that somebody did analytical listening because I think there's a place for that after the relational part. You know, and I think of that as emotion before cognition. We do need to get to the root of that problem, but what we need to do first is attend to the emotions of this person. All right, let's try one more. Simulation number 2. Okay, imagine you walk into the sim lab. I'm doing simulation that day. I'm flying down the hallway in my scrubs with my lab coat flapping in the breeze behind me. And you run into me and you say, what's going on? And I go, oh my gosh, I am so stressed. The students are going to be here in 5 minutes and I can't get that stupid mannequin to breathe. So let's vote again. Task-oriented, critical, analytical, relational. What do you think? Such a sharp group. All right, so it looks like we've got mostly task-oriented. Yeah, this person needs to get this problem solved, don't they? If I did this, oh my God, I'm so stressed and the mannequin doesn't work, and somebody says to me, oh, how you feeling right now? I'd be like, I don't care how I'm feeling, I need this mannequin to work. So task-oriented. After the fact, when we get the mannequin breathing, you know, a little pat on the back, a little relational exchange there for like, how you doing, you feeling better now? Fine, but I think up front we need to get the problem solved. And again, analytical is in here. Because when we get to the bedside of that mannequin, we are going to be doing some analysis, aren't we, to try and figure out, okay, what did you do when you turned the mannequin on? Let's walk through this. So we toggle back and forth between listening styles as the situation demands. So I've got a video here of a woman demonstrating toggling between different listening styles, not perfectly, but let's watch this. And just to set this up, the man who's in this video is trying to get his partner's input because he's trying to make a decision about which kind of technology he should buy between two choices. So let's watch this, and then we'll talk about it.
First there was PlayStation, aka PS1. Then there's PS2, PS3, and now PS4. And that makes sense. You'd think after Xbox, there'd be Xbox 2. But no. Next came Xbox 360. And now, after 360, comes Xbox One. Why one? Maybe that's how many seconds of thought they put into naming it.
Can you get the butter, please?
Yeah. However, with the Xbox One, I can control my entire entertainment system using voice commands. Up until now, I've had to use Leonard.
Then get the other one. Pass the butter.
Hang on. I don't feel like you're taking this dilemma seriously.
Fine, Sheldon. You have my undivided attention.
Okay, now, the PS4 is more angular and sleek looking.
No way.
It's true, but the larger size of the Xbox One may keep it from overheating.
You wouldn't want your gaming system to overheat?
No, see, well, you absolutely would not. And furthermore, the Xbox One now comes with a Kinect included.
Included?
Yes. Not sold separately. Although the PS4 uses cool new GDDR5 RAM, while the Xbox One is still using the conventional DDR3 memory.
Why would they still be using DDR3? Are they nuts?
See, that's what I thought. But then they go and throw in an ES RAM buffer.
Whoa, wait a second. Who's they?
The Xbox.
You're kidding!
No, I am not. And this ES RAM buffer should totally bridge the 100 gigabit per second bandwidth gap between the two RAM types.
This is a nightmare. How will you ever make a decision?
See, I don't know. What should I do?
Please pass the butter!
Okay, so technically there was some toggling between different listening styles there. But I think there was a little something missing. And I think when we're listening, the most basic thing we have to have before we even think about listening styles is something as simple as curiosity and respect. When we're in an important dialogue, when we're in any dialogue with another person, we need to have curiosity about what's going on in their mind. Why are they taking the position they're taking? Why are they advocating a certain course of action? Or if it's retrospective, why did they make a decision that they made? With curiosity about what's really going on in their mind. And with respect for that other human being as an intelligent, capable person who is sincerely trying to do something good in this situation. And so just like being a great debriefer, being a great listener happens first inside the head of the person who's listening. Before the words you say come out, we need to get ourselves in a place where we can look at this other human being and say they've got something interesting to say. It might be different than the way I see the world, but I need to listen to what they're saying. Because if we think back to all of those great human accomplishments, do you think everybody agreed all along the way as they were building the pyramids or launching the Mars rover? Of course they didn't agree, but they listened and they connected with a baseline of curiosity and respect. So we're going to put our heads in a place where we see this other person through the eyes of curiosity and respect. We're holding a basic assumption about them as a person who's sincerely trying to do something good. But let's look at kind of like operationally, as we're listening to understand, what are some of the things that we can do to ensure that we are listening to understand? And the first one seems so simple, but it's so hard, which is don't talk. It's hard, isn't it? Because sometimes I'm listening to a person who might be presenting me with a problem, and oh my God, I have the idea in my head, I know how we can solve this problem. And so what do I want to do? Interrupt. Stop talking, you don't need to tell me anymore, I got the solution. So with the best of intentions, I interrupt. I give advice, maybe advice isn't even what they're looking for. And you know, I gotta say, there's a lot of times that I thought that talking about myself was actually expressing empathy. I thought I was like connecting. You know, maybe somebody comes up to me and says, oh my gosh, I'm having such a difficult day. You know, we lost our family pet, our black lab. He was with us for 15 years and we lost him this weekend. And, you know, the kids are so upset. And I say, oh gosh, I am so sorry. It's so hard to lose a member of our family, which our pets are. You know, I remember we had a black lab and he lived to be 15 too. And I remember the day we put our black lab down. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden it's all about me. I sincerely thought I was expressing empathy. There'll be room for those stories, I think, as you're talking to this person, but not as an initial response. Do remember that different situations call for different styles of listening, and try to match with what the situation calls for, even though you're going to want to default to your favorite. And I want to highlight that in most difficult conversations, and I don't mean just difficult as in uncomfortable, but you're grappling with a big problem, or maybe you do have a difference of opinion you're trying to straighten out. Analytical and relational listening will usually serve you well. Because again, I want you to think, you know, within the context of relational listening, emotion before cognition. Connect with that person on an emotional level, and then get to the tough stuff. And then analytical listening often serves us well because analytical listening asks us to withhold judgment until we've got all of the evidence in a situation. And then even when that person is finished talking, even if we think they're finished talking, invite further sharing from them by just saying something simple like, is there anything else? Or my favorite debriefing line, tell me more. Or what has become my favorite question, what did you learn? Especially if we're discussing something that didn't go well. We need to stop being afraid of our mistakes. We need to embrace our mistakes as a welcome and inevitable part of growth. And I find this question very helpful too with the naysayers. When you say, I've got this great idea for something we can do, with the curriculum. And they go, oh, we tried that 3 years ago, it didn't work. What did you learn? There is always something to be learned from mistakes, and we've got to embrace that. So when we're listening for understanding, what are we listening for? The one thing we are really listening for is what in the debriefing world we call the cognitive frames of the other person. What is driving them? Why is this so important to them? What do they care about? Why do they care about it? What are they trying to accomplish? We're listening for differences in worldview and culture. Now, sometimes it's pretty easy to identify when someone is from a different culture than us. They speak a different language, or we know the country they're from. But we have to remember that even people who seem the same can often have a very different worldview. I grew up in a little tiny coal mining town in northeastern Pennsylvania in a big, noisy Catholic family. And we didn't travel the world. We lived in our little world in northeastern Pennsylvania. Contrast that with a dear friend of mine who was raised by 2 Harvard professors, who spent a large part of her childhood growing up in India, where her parents were experts on the Indian economy, where dinner table conversation was expected to be world events, and the children were expected to support their points of view with data. At our dinner table, I just hoped that my big brother Freddie didn't pass gas while my dad was saying grace. So Jenny and I have very different worldviews, even though we look the same. And I think we really need to be sensitive to that not everyone sees the world the same way. And sometimes we're listening for emotion, because sometimes people don't really say what's on their mind, but we can pick up signs of distress. Sometimes we pick up happiness. Sometimes we pick up sadness. And if I see that in a conversation, I understand it's actually getting in the way of conversation because nobody's addressing the emotions, and I stop. And I say, gee, Carolyn, you're looking a little uncomfortable here. I know we're having this conversation about this, but is there something brewing under the surface that you want to talk about? Emotion before cognition. So I want to tie this all to resilience, because when we are connected, we are stronger, because none of us is as smart as all of us, and that will make us resilient. Why do I care? Why do I want to be resilient? Because here's what we know about people who are resilient. They tend to be more optimistic. They're sick less often. They have fewer interpersonal conflicts. And when they're asked to rate life satisfaction scales, they always rate life satisfaction very high. So I want to be resilient. They're the correlates of resilience. What are the antecedents of resilience? Well, research tells us the antecedents, what comes before resilience. And there's a couple of things, but there's really only one thing. It is sustained, significant, positive social relationships is the single biggest predictor of resilience. Because when we are connected, we are stronger. And those relationships can be with your family and friends, but they can certainly be with your peers. I'm at George Washington University now. I'm going to be there for a long time. I'm going to have sustained and significant relationships with my peers there, and I'm going to make sure that they're positive. And part of that is listening, especially to the people I disagree with. We have lost our ability to listen respectfully to people we disagree with, and we need to get that back. All right, well, I'm moving into the summary phase of my talk here. And I was trained in debriefing at the Center for Medical Simulation, and so I know I'm not allowed to tell you what your takeaways are. but I kind of wish I knew what they were. So as I was thinking about this and thinking, like, how do I do the summary phase without telling them? You know, and I was thinking about my academic career, and I remembered that when I was a student, I was a really good test taker. And then I realized that some of my rules of test taking actually hold for these kinds of important dialogues we have as we're listening to understand. And so I want to share them with you as a way to do takeaways. So, test taking rule number 1. If a statement contains the word always or never, it is probably not true. Same with dialogue. If you find yourself heading into a conversation with someone going, well, she always, that's probably not true. And by the same token, when you go, well, I would never, that's probably not true either. There's a little bit of good in the worst of us, and there's a little bit of bad in the best of us. And I think we need to move off our positions of it's got to be this way and understand that the world is mostly gray. Test taking rule number 2. The longest answer is probably the right answer. I think when it comes to dialogue, send, probably not good. If you find yourself typing out an email about something important, like maybe a disagreement you're having on the admissions committee about how we're going to do our admissions process, and you find yourself typing out your position and then you're 4 paragraphs in explaining your reasoning, just stop. Just walk down the hall, put on your mask, stay socially distant, walk down the hall, have a conversation, or get on Zoom, have a conversation. Look at that person you're talking to, because bad things happen when we stop looking each other in the eye. You know, and then I got to test taking rule number 3, which was never change your answer. And I was like, that doesn't work. Because when we engage in deep dialogue, when we listen to understand, our minds are often open to perspectives we hadn't considered, to solutions we were not able to see by ourselves. And sometimes we do change our answer. And sometimes we change it to the right one, because none of us is as smart as all of us. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Unlike Mary, I'm not tall. So, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Fernares. I direct the Division for Innovation and Education Excellence here at the National League for Nursing. What a terrific opportunity this has been for us to reflect on all the many insights that Mary shared with us about the quality of our relationships with others and how vital that is to our personal resilience, and how as nurse educators, we must be skilled listeners as nurses and skilled speakers as educators. I also want to extend a very special thank you to our dear strategic partners, Laerdal Medical, for making this session ongoing very possible, and the collaboration and support that you continue to provide to the NLN. Laerdal has been a supportive collaborator with the National League for Nursing since 2003. It's also a privilege and a pleasure to work with all of you. Thank you. I'd like to now invite to the stage Rosie Patterson, Vice President of Sales for North America, Laerdal Medical, to come and make a special presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Sue and Mary Faye. Was that an awesome presentation? I'm so honored to be here to celebrate nurse educators and the work that they're doing, moving this simulation dial, so to speak, in nursing education, really pushing the agenda forward. And this lecture honors Debra Spunt, You know, she pioneered the use of simulation in nursing education, and she strategically directed one of the first simulation centers in the United States at the University of Maryland. And having had the privilege of working with Debra for several years, I know she would be, as we all are, so very proud of her legacy. Dr. Fay and her many esteemed colleagues continue to push the boundaries of nursing education, champions of simulation. It is in this spirit that I would also like to recognize the directors, both past and present, of the Debra Spunt Simulation Center at the University of Maryland School of Nursing. With us here today is past director, Dr. Mary Fay, and the current director, Dr. Amy Daniels, and I'd also like to recognize past director, Dr. Regina Twig. Would you please stand and be recognized? And so it is with sincere pleasure that I congratulate Mary today and honor her for presenting the 2021 Spunt Lecture. Over the past years, it has been such a pleasure and an honor to work with you. It is my sincere privilege to present you with this crystal that's coming. So if you please join me again in thanking Mary for her presentation this morning. Well done.
Thank you, everyone. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Nln Chair, Dr. Patricia Yoder Wise.
Hi, y'all. Did you think I left? Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful speech. Wasn't it great? So for those of you who are okay, got it, you might as well go ahead and get your phones out because it is not going to be a really short speech. So you're going to be if you're an A listener, tune out right now. In my closing remarks to you as chair, I want to say what an honor it has been to serve first as your president, and then because of the bylaws change, as your chair of the NLN, especially through a period when every one of us was needed in whatever role we held. Your board has served in a spectacular manner. We figured out things that we didn't even know we'd ever have to figure out. We had no way of anticipating what those things were when we took our office 1 or 2 years ago. The staff also figured out things, just like we did as faculty, from their home offices. In a time when many organizations failed, not just in nursing, but throughout the country, the NLN thrived. Yes. And that's in large part to two things: the creativity of our staff and the commitment of our members. Thank you to both. Now let me tell you some of my observations or reinforcements that I have had during these past 2 years. 1, all of the easy decisions have already been made. A good friend of mine and colleague said that to me many years ago, way before the pandemic. and yet we have risen to the occasion, rather in a spectacular way. 2, we need to change some of our language. And here are some examples. 1, I'm not going to number these because I want you to continue your own list. Talk about care impact and nurse value. We can translate what care means to people and help those who focus on finance understand the return on investment of what nursing care means. And it is consistent with the NAM report of identifying nursing as a separate cost. And when we do that, it will be much easier to identify the value of nursing within the usual framework of value within our society. Next, yes, let's use the term doctor as intended. Refer to those holding medical degrees as physicians when talking about them as a group. We need to reinforce the idea that others hold doctoral degrees and that a degree is granted by an educational institution, not a term owned by a profession. Next, dump the term go ahead, yes. Dump the term mid-level providers. Even if our colleagues who are APRNs refer to themselves as mid-level providers, we must refer to those individuals as advanced practice registered nurses. Not only are they not mid-level anything, think of the message it sends to those registered nurses who are not prepared in an advanced practice role. Reinforce the term advanced practitioners in education for nurse faculty. And recognize that role as a specialty, just as we do the other specialties in nursing. Our language and behaviors, actions speak louder than words, need to be inclusive of gender, age, race, lifestyle, education, and role. We need to feel as if we belong, not that we were merely acknowledged. And let's get rid of the term floor nurse. Nurses who work on general medical surgical units are challenged in a different way than those who work in critical care areas. And some of our greatest challenges exist in rural areas. I live in an area where we are surrounded by a lot of rural areas, and I've always said, if it walks in the door, it is yours to deal with, whatever it is. Being a high-level generalist is as challenging in a very different way as being an expert in a well-defined area. Help everyone understand. We all have to be in charge of our own health. We cannot rely on X system or Y physician or Z clinic to have our healthcare records and to pull something together. We ourselves have to do that, and we have to help our friends, our family, our patients understand that. And maybe we can reallocate to our own profession the idea of twisties. I am sure every one of us has experienced the disconnect between our brains and our hands. Like when we go to perform a procedure and suddenly we freeze or something and we're trying to teach someone else to do something and it just doesn't all connect. And that term also reinforces our need for psych mental health experiences for our learners. Thank you, Simone Biles. You really are a goat in more ways than one. And definitely, let's ban the word just. I need say no more. Speak up and take credit for the things we do. Our in-the-moment invention of care, clinically and educationally, has been nothing short of spectacular these past many months. We need to claim those inventions as ours, take credit, and let others know that it was a nurse who brought that invention to others. Value every, this is number 3, value every educational preparation in nursing for what it contributes. Thinking broadly across the whole perspective of care provision, we need every role and every educational preparation we have today. Consider how we can capitalize on each educational program rather than offering disparaging remarks about a program that doesn't look quite like mine. If our programs were people, we would quickly be called out on bias or discrimination. 4, be like the Scouts. Be prepared. Seize any opportunity that fits with your mission and use it to your advantage. In 2021 alone, 6 reports, did you get that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reports were written about nursing that affects what we do. Now, unless your job is to keep track of those reports, I bet you did not know that there were 6 reports. We can barely keep on top of what it is we need to know to function in our own roles. Yet those documents can impact what we do, maybe for tomorrow, but definitely for the next decade and beyond. If you were in the faculty meeting, you actually heard about this. The opioid crisis, followed and then mixed with COVID-19 pandemic, exacerbated the mental health needs that we have in this country and the world. If you haven't upped your mental health experiences for your students, please relook at what you're doing. And those same experiences really highlighted our critical concerns related to the infrastructure of public health, primary care, school health, and sources of access to care. So if you haven't upped those experiences, again, please look at what you are doing. 5, find the evidence, use the evidence, create the evidence. Some of what we were able to do during these past 2 years was built on the evidence that we had been building in nursing education related to such aspects as asynchronous learning, distance learning, and simulation. Some of us are likely zoomed out, and yet we kept our students connected and moved them through our programs. We quickly figured out some of the data that were emerging and determined what alterations we could safely make while maintaining programmatic integrity. We built on the progress of reflection and expanded how we could go about that. And one of my favorite examples that I learned during this derived from social psychology, and that's the idea of distanced self-talk, which involves the idea of talking to yourself, but in the second or third person. Theoretically, that helps people regulate emotions. And in case you haven't noticed, we could use a lot of regulation of emotions in society today. We also identified a list of questions that need to be addressed to allow for even better future learning experiences with or without the challenges such as the pandemic. 6, address the tough issues in the profession, especially in nursing education. Those include racism, genderism, ageism, preparationism, and civility. And yes, I think I coined that word preparationism, but I know you know what I mean. 7, create control of the profession to a desirable extent so that we can recruit today's emerging learners who want to make a difference. They don't want to join something that's sort of wishy-washy. They want to join something they know will make a difference. Our practice partners are even more eager than we are to find those committed to caring for patients. They have lived through nearly 2 years of turmoil and temporary staff who have allowed them to provide care. Yet they have known those individuals are not necessarily planning to stay. We need each other. We have to maximize our talent. We cannot each duplicate the same content, concepts, and competencies across the street or down the block or down the highway or across the nation. We need each other. And we certainly cannot create robust research by each of us doing a small convenient sample study in our own place. We need each other. 8, value the organization in which you work or find one in which you have a cultural fit. And so I'm going to divert for a minute just to say one thing about where I work, and that is Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center just received some designation as a great place to work. So if you're looking for a job ever, be sure to check us out. Okay, now back to the main speech here. Know that you are there to contribute to the whole of co-creating another generation of nurses who care, learn, lead, create, challenge, and make a difference for people and healthcare needs. That's what we've been doing. Don't we want to create more people, not just like us, but who have those same values that we hold near and dear to us to make a difference for patients? 9, be thankful for the small things. For example, as we've been wearing these masks, no one has said, oops, you have some spinach in your teeth. And seriously, so many big things are happening. I mean, at some points I've had to stop watching the news. I just couldn't stand to hear one more thing that has happened. And so sometimes we just have to pause breathe, and consider what we do have to be thankful for. And sometimes those are simply the small things. I know you can all, every one of us, think of some of those small things that have personal meaning for you in your personal life. 10, use our vision for transformative excellence. Purpose, power, and passion. Look what it brought us in 2021. Our new accreditation unit, Cnea. And I have another P to add to that, and that is people. We had so many people who engaged in the process, from providing data to influencing others to praying, and our outcome was predictable. Use your own purpose, power, and passion, and people to create your own transformation. 11, this is an obvious statement. The future lies before us. Really, no kidding. So anyway, the future lies before us. We have survived our past, some better than others. And we have all learned something. Some of us have learned things in a much harder way than others have. And we have the potential to create a whole new generation of nurses and nurse educators if only we put our minds and our hearts to it. I thank you for being a part of the NLN, for helping students continue their education so they too could join us in providing care to the nation and the world, for working with clinical agency to assure the best possible opportunity, for loving and crying with our clinical colleagues as they needed care and comfort, and for admiring their tenacity, agility, and heart. They are waiting for us to send in the next generation of new nurses. We all need each other. And to all of the NLN, lead on, adelante. Thank you. Thank you. Now I would like to welcome you to the 2021 annual business meeting of the National League for Nursing. Hello. Well, I will welcome you and I will continue on. I assume Bev and Kathleen are coming somewhere. The meeting is now called to order and will be in session until 12:30. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for the NLN business meeting. I hear a motion. Is there a second? Thank you. The motion is duly seconded. The motion is on the adoption of the agenda. All those in favor of the agenda as presented, please raise your hands now. Those, thank you very much. And those who are opposed, please raise your hand. Nobody ever opposes the adoption of the agenda. Any abstentions? Okay. The ayes have it and the motion is carried. The first item on the business agenda before us is the approval of the business meeting minutes from 2021. At their January 2021 meeting, the Board of Governors, in accordance with the established process, reviewed and approved the minutes of the 2020 business meeting held during the virtual summit. I will now entertain a motion and a second to refer the 2021 business meeting minutes to the Board of Governors for approval. Is there a motion? I have a motion. Is there a second? And a second, thank you. All those in favor of referring the minutes of this meeting to the Board of Governors for the approval of the group, signify by raising your hands now, please. Thank you. And those in opposition, raise your hand. Thank you. And those opposed, those in abstention? Again, the ayes have it. The motion is carried. Thank you. I now ask the membership to please join me in welcoming to the stage to deliver her executive report, the NLN President and CEO, Dr. Beverly Malone.
Wait just a minute. Hello, colleagues. I just want us to give our chair, Nln chair, another round of applause for that excellent. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending our 2021 business meeting. Colleagues, the Nln remains the leader in nursing education, which I'm very happy to announce. Member engagement continues to be our strength and our most valuable commodity. Thank you to the thousands of nurse educators involved with the Nln. You are truly the backbone of our work to bring essential resources to all our members who teach in programs across the academic spectrum. The Nln centers have been extraordinarily busy. The partnership between the Nln and Chamberlain continues successfully with the Nln Chamberlain University School of Nursing Center for the Advancement of the Science of Nursing Education. And there was quite a bit of talk about that advance. This is the science of nursing education. Within that center, the Nln Research Review Panel approved Nln Foundation Awards and 2 Nln Doctoral Student Awards for a total amount awarded of $86,500. 2 publications will be released for Summit 2021. The first publication, Achieving Distinction in Nursing Education, edited by Drs. Marcia Adams and Terry Valiga, is a follow-up to their first book, Achieving Excellence in Nursing Education. The second publication, edited by Dr. Pamela Jeffries, is the Nln Jeffries Simulation Theory, 2nd edition. Both are available for purchase in the Nln bookstore. Plus a special themed issue on workforce issues in the Nln's Nursing Education Perspectives, the NEP, will be distributed at this summit as well as made available online at neponline.net. A call for manuscripts for the 2022 special issue remains open until January 2022. It sounds like a long way away, but it's not. This special issue is focused on educating during times of crises, September-October 2022. The 2021 Summit special issue of the NEP addresses workforce issues with editors Dr. Lynn Llewellyn and Elizabeth Van Horn. The 2022 special issue will focus on educating during times of crises with co-editors Drs. Karen Frith, Audrey Bouvet, and Linda Roney. Planning is underway for the 2023 special issue, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Nursing Education. The co-editors for the 2023 issue are Dr. Stephen Palozzo, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Dr. Sandra Davis of the Nln, and Dr. Cheryl Green, Southern Connecticut University. We have outstanding experts who serve on the NEP editorial board. Will all the NEP editorial board members please stand for a round of applause? Thank you so much. We thank you for all you do behind the scenes. The Jonas Philanthropies has approved an $80,000 grant over 2 years to the Nln to support 8 Nln Jonas PhD scholars. The 11th cohort of 4 Nln Jonas scholars were selected from diverse doctoral nursing programs: University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Villanova University, Widener University, and the University of Northern Colorado. Will the Jonas scholars, along with Althea Hicks, Dr. Althea Hicks, please stand for a round of applause? Colleagues, planning is underway for the Nursing Education Research Conference, affectionately known as NERC, in Washington, D.C. 2023, sponsored by the Nln. Moving on to the Center for Transformational Leadership. There are 22 participants in the year-long Nln LEAD program. Both the LEAD and the Leadership Development Program for Simulation Educators are celebrating their 10th year anniversary. This is quite an accomplishment. The application deadline for the 2022 cohort for the Nln Leadership Program is October the 4th. You will barely get out of Summit before it is required. Just a heads up. Will all current participants and alums of these 2 leadership programs please stand for a deserving round of applause? Thank you. The center has been very productive this year, awarding several grants. The Nln has 11 historically Black colleges and university school programs participating in some of these grant programs. First, there's the Nln Walden University College of Nursing Institute for Social Determinants of Health and Social Change. This is new, innovative, and timely institute. Our deputy director, you've seen her around here, is Dr. Sandra Davis, and we are so delighted to have her. Sandra, could you just please stand so everybody will know who you are and they can tap you? Nln Johnson & Johnson Project, transitioning senior nursing students in historically Black colleges and universities and on into clinical practice. Nln Elsevier Foundation Project, advancing historically Black colleges and universities, known affectionately as HBCUs, schools of nursing, through innovation in teaching and technology excellence. This project is in collaboration with the Nln Division for Innovation in Education Excellence, and Sue Fanaras was just out here recently, and she directs that program. Nln taking AIMS initiative on structural racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and implicit bias, funded by AMN Healthcare and Elsevier Education and Health. There have been several successes for the Nln's public policy and advocacy, for example, funding for the Title VIII nursing workforce. Delighted. The public policy priorities for 2021 and to 2022 were developed and they have been disseminated. If you haven't seen them, please go to your website and they're there. The Nln is also conducting surveys, including the Nln Schools of Nursing Survey. Many, many thanks to everyone who took the time to complete any of these surveys, because the data are so important for dissemination to policymakers, funders, accreditation agencies, and regulators. In 2022, the Schools of Nursing Survey and the Faculty Census Survey will be combined into one survey instead of 2 surveys, and it will be conducted annually. And we know that there are those about you out there who have been praying for this, that it would only be 1 survey instead of 2 surveys. Yes, please, applause. I can also report that the Nln Certification Department continues to offer both the Cnea and the CNE-CL certifications for academic nurse educators. Since 2005, over 11,500 academic nurse educators have earned the credential of Certified Nurse Educator, or CNE. This credential measures excellence as an academic nurse educator, practicing in the full scope of the role. During the past 12 months, 714 certified nurse educators were added to the certification roster. In recognition of the thousands of academic nurse educators who practice as a clinical educator only, or adjunct, or preceptor, or one of the other titles referring to the same role of teaching students during clinical experiences, a second academic nurse educator certification exam was created 3 years ago. During the past 12 months, 140 certified clinical nurse educators were added for a new total of 475 certified clinical nurse educators. We are so very excited to announce the soon-to-be addition of a 3rd certification exam, the CNE-N, small n, which stands for Certified Nurse Educator Novice. This exam was built upon the newly identified competencies and level to fit the functions and role of the nurse educator new to the practice of nursing education. The target group is nurse educators with less than 3 years of experience in the role. The anticipated launch date is set to occur in October of this year, just a few weeks away. And now for an update on enterprise development. Nln's newly formed enterprise development area, comprised of an assessment service division and a division for innovation in education excellence, is laser focused on executing Nln's mission-aligned business model. The Nln, the first nursing organization in the U.S. to offer assessments, has a rich portfolio of exams through assessment services that address a full range of nursing school testing needs, from admissions to in-course and 4-credit bridge program exams to NCLEX review and nurse in practice exams. The division's expert assessment development committees are creating and refining test items for existing exams, as well as for our exciting Learning Checkup exam, LCE series. These low-stake exam offerings will assess student progress in various topic areas throughout the nursing program, while assisting faculty with outcomes assessment and evaluation of their educational programs, informing curriculum adjustments, and even facilitating remediation. Flexibility in test administration also remains a priority to address the evolving test scheduling challenges of our school. Our model allows for seamless testing on campus, by remote, or a combination, to address the variety of scenarios The goal is to provide the best uninterrupted quality assessment services available today. Next, I am excited to report that Dr. Michelle Moulton has joined us as Senior Manager in the Enterprise Division for Innovation in Education Excellence. In addition, the division has engaged Dr. Jenny O'Rourke, a project consultant, to focus on our Coaching for Excellence on Demand course, who will be involved in reimagining our Simulation Innovation Resource Center, known as CIRC, courses and faculty development simulation education offerings. Be sure, please, to stop by the exhibit hall booth to learn more about our assessment service team. They're dedicated to supporting the needs of our customers and students to the best of our ability. This has also been another action-packed and successful year for the Nln's communications and marketing, outreach, and graphics material. Although they have a hand in virtually everything we do, I would like to share an update about one of their biggest projects this year. Colleagues, I am excited to share with you that the Nln will be entering the modern age with the relaunch of our website, nln.org. The new website will attract new and prospective members, nurses and nurse educators. So if you're not a member and you're in this audience, you should be attracted already. Be well organized and much easier to navigate. Provide an easy, effective, and useful experience on all devices. So you should be able to get your information anywhere about NLN. The new nln.org will launch in the next few weeks. And I hope you're hearing all of these launches in the next few weeks. That means we're not taking a break. And I'm not offering my staff a break. So contemplate that. Watch your email and our social media for the big announcement. We would also like to inform you that the Nln on September 8th began operating a 4-day work week, Monday to Thursday, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. This is a pilot, and it will be reviewed by the end of the year to determine its viability on making it permanent. We were aware that some exceptions would arise, and those few exceptions were permitted to stay on a 5-day work week. But the offices of the Nln will basically be closed on that Friday, and we're really going to be giving our teams a 3-day weekend, which they are so deserving of. Although we have returned back to our offices, due to COVID-19, it is every other week, with half of our staff at the office on one week and the other half working from home that week. So it's like that. And the COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented pain, grief, and destruction to the health and well-being of our nation's citizens and economy. Thus far, and I know you know these numbers, there have been close to 49 million confirmed cases in the U.S. that have resulted in over 600,000 deaths. The healthcare professionals on the front lines of this pandemic have been stretched beyond their limits, I would say beyond our limits. Our thanks and appreciation to all essential workers. We are saving lives every day. Although online education is nothing new, the Nln has been trying to get faculty to get back to some of the basics on good teaching by focusing on student learning outcomes and teaching and learning strategies that assist in achieving the specific learning objectives being sought. This may mean, for example, designing tighter lesson plans, providing more opportunity to engage learners in remote activities that have them solving problems, and using the content and working together with the educator guiding those conversations. Expanding on our popular Taking Aim webinar series, this spring we have designed 3 new and upcoming webinars that focus on just that. How educators have used good teaching and learning around the domains of cognitive, psychosocial, and affective and transformed their online classrooms. You can sign up for these free webinars through our e-blast the next few weeks or by visiting nln.org. Just click on our Coronavirus Resource Center. You can find previous Taking Aim webinars there, free for download too. Now, colleagues, please join me in welcoming Dr. Teresa Schallenbarger, Executive Director of the Nln Commission for Nursing Education Accreditation, or Nln Cnea, to give us an update. Teresa.
I am so delighted to be here with you today and provide you with a brief update on the National League for Nursing Commission for Nursing Education Accreditation. Since Cnea began in 2013, we have accomplished many things. Today, we're here to celebrate our most recent achievement with the Nln community. Cnea, as you heard, has finally received the U.S. Department of Education recognition and is now an officially recognized DOE accrediting agency for nursing education programs. Yeah. This DOE recognition was granted for the full 5-year period, the maximum amount of time that can be awarded. This success does not just happen in isolation, and it really was a team of people making this happen. I'd like to acknowledge a few of those people now. First, I want to recognize the outstanding work of Dr. Judith Halstead. She laid the foundation for this success and established a values-based accreditation agency that looks forward to continued growth. Thank you so much, Judy. Next, I want to acknowledge our Board of Commissioners, our staff, and the many Cnea volunteers who have worked so hard for several years to establish a quality accrediting agency that's meeting the needs of programs across the educational spectrum. These individuals have donated their time and talents to fostering this success. There were some people who really propelled us forward with this achievement, and I want to acknowledge those individuals as well. Our program directors and faculty continue to remain supportive throughout the recognition process, and many of them, along with Betty Lou Taylor, our lobbyist, served as activists speaking out on behalf of Cnea. We thank you for your assistance. Special thanks to Walter Bumpus, President and CEO of the American Association of Community Colleges. His advocacy on behalf of Cnea escalated the issue and helped us get the decision and the favorable resolution that we needed. It is truly a cause for celebration, and we look forward to growing our influence and ensuring quality and excellence in nursing education accreditation. Now that we've achieved this milestone, we look forward to continued growth in the future. Now I'd like to provide you with a few updates about Cnea. As of July, Cnea has granted pre-accreditation or initial accreditation for over 115 programs, including practical vocational programs, diploma RN programs, associate degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, and clinical doctorate programs. We have a cadre of trained on-site program evaluators from nursing education and nursing practice. We're always looking for more good people to come and work with us at Cnea, so if you are interested in becoming a site visitor, please stop by our booth at the exhibit hall. There's one chance left, or visit us at our website for further details, and that website is cnea.nln.org. We're updating our accreditation standards, and we recently closed our final call for comments phase. These new standards will reflect timely issues such as those discussed in the National Academy of Medicine Future of Nursing Report. Once finalized, programs will have a transition period before they need to follow these new standards. Watch for further updates about this on our website. The work accomplished by Cnea demonstrates that we have continued to grow steadily as the foremost authority on value-driven national nursing education, one that respects all types of programs and embraces the core values of caring, diversity, excellence, and inclusion. And we do this through the integrity of the accreditation process. Cnea has gained national level acceptance in its scope of accreditation activities across that spectrum. Additionally, we have many of those nurse educators and practice partners who are committed to advancing excellence in nursing education accreditation. We look forward to another successful year of continued growth. Thank you.
I don't really know how to say how thankful we are for Teresa. Grateful, thankful, and I should stand up here so you can see me. Grateful, thank you, and after Judith, we didn't know exactly what we were going to do in terms of the next person to take over. And to have someone like, Judy doing this incredible thing of starting the whole thing, and then to have Teresa come behind her. We have just been so fortunate at the National League for Nursing to have the quality of leadership in CNA that we have, and so we are delighted. I just please give both of them another round of applause. So, I would like to conclude my report by thanking our Nln Chair, Dr. Patricia Yoder-Wise, Board of Governors, partners, and staff who have all contributed to making this a big banner year for the Nln. Thank you so very much, and let me step aside for my colleague.
It's been a banner year. Great. And thank you, Bev, for a good report and for a banner year. I now invite our treasurer, Dr. Ann Krause, to give the Nln Treasures Report. Ann?
Thank you, Madam Nln Chair. I present this report on behalf of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is vested with the care of the fiduciary picture of the organization. I would like to thank the following members of the Finance Committee for their careful oversight of the Nln finances: Mike Newsom, Angela Amar, Barbara Schaffner, Mark Vogt, Don Schuck, our investment advisor, and of course, Patricia Yoder-Wise, Nln Chair, and Kathleen Poindexter, Nln Chair-elect. The Nln revenue comes from dues, testing, workshops, the summit, and royalties from collaboration with industry partners. Revenue decline in the areas of testing and the summit related to COVID this year have been offset by royalties and the federal Protected Paycheck Program, the PPP loans, and subsequent loan forgiveness. Operating expenses have remained steady and are managed in a fiscally responsible way. Operational challenges during 2020 due to COVID were offset by lower travel costs and a reduction in other operational expenses while staff were working remotely. The Nln realized an increase in operating surplus this year despite the challenges related to COVID. This increase is due to the impact of royalties, stock market investments, and PPP loan forgiveness. A portion of the surplus has been used each year represented on this slide for investment in Cnea, as well as contribution to the reserve fund balance. The Nln received federal grants of $750,000 in 2020 and $920,000 in 2021 from the federal government. To obtain loan forgiveness, the Nln has maintained its staffing and salaries in concordance with the grant requirements. Yearly, the Finance Committee reviews the investment strategy for the reserve fund balance as well as the investment portfolio to ensure that the Nln maintains a strong financial foundation to support the organization now and in the future. As mentioned previously, this fund has been used strategically by the Nln to launch and invest in Cnea. Areas of growth that have been realized in the financial performance of the Nln include Cne, CNECL, as well as the strategic corporate partnerships that are aligned with the mission of the Nln and result in revenue enhancement through royalties. The Nln exceeded budget projections due to reduced expenditures, PPP funding, and royalties significantly above budget. The Nln reserve balance has sufficient funds to both invest in Cnea and provide funds if needed for unforeseen financial needs. The Nln has exhibited responsible fiscal management despite the challenges of the COVID pandemic, with maintenance of full staffing and salaries. I commend President and CEO Dr. Beverly Malone and the Nln staff for their efforts to ensure the financial stability of the organization, particularly during the pandemic. This concludes the report of the Treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. She's been a wonderful treasurer. I am now pleased to invite Dr. Patrick Robinson, Secretary of the Nln Foundation for Nursing Education Board of Trustees, to present the Foundation's annual report to the membership. Patrick?
I'm a little taller. Thank you so much, Dr. Yoder-Wise. Good morning. It is indeed an honor to be here this morning representing the Board of Trustees of the Nln Foundation. I want to begin by thanking the amazing staff that supports the Foundation. And I also want to acknowledge my fellow members of the Board of Trustees and thank them for their time and commitment to our philanthropic goals. As the Secretary of the Nln Foundation for Nursing Education, I am honored to share with you how your generosity is providing opportunities for nurses and nurse educators to pave the way to the future. These initiatives include the Nln Faculty Scholarship Program, the Nln Research Grants, and the Nln Scholarly Writing Retreat. I am so proud to announce that this year we awarded 16 scholarships to deserving students thanks to all of your support. In addition, in 2021, the NLN has continued our partnership with Home Instead, a leading provider of in-home senior care. Now, this partnership has allowed for the NLN to award 5 additional scholarships to nurses seeking to improve the care of individuals in the field of geriatrics and gerontology. To provide these opportunities, the Foundation has created various ways to contribute. Our highest tier of philanthropy is participation in the NLN Advisory Council. This prestigious gathering of like-minded experts from all sectors of the healthcare field meet to provide expertise and critical insight to support the mission of the NLN. In addition, these members pledge an annual contribution to support the Foundation's objective, including our grants and our scholarships. We are so fortunate to have 19 committed members on our advisory council. We are thankful for the council's support and invite you to learn more about the advisory council members at nln./foundation. I am truly grateful for their wisdom, generosity, and thought leadership to the Foundation. Now, another way the NLN Foundation raises funds is through the Nln Recognition Program and the Class Giving Project with the incoming Centers of Excellence in the NLN Academy of Nursing Education inductees. These organizations and individuals inspire all of us to be more, to do more, and to dream more by their examples of excellence. I want to specifically thank the University of Tennessee Health Science Center College of Nursing, Belmont University School of Nursing, the University of Florida College of Nursing, and individuals Lisa Ruth Saad, Jacqueline Leversage, Cordelia Chinwen Nudu, and Maria Dane Lapez Blum. Their outstanding leadership and support has been at the highest level. Their names can be seen on the Summit Thank You Wall, along with all of our wonderful benefactors. And the Thank You Wall represents more than $28,000 from schools, individuals, and organizations. The NLN Foundation for Nursing Education proudly supports many initiatives that help us preserve the past as well as build the future of nursing education. One of those exciting initiatives is the Nln Archives Project. Located at the University of Pennsylvania Bates Center for the Study of Nursing History, the Nln Archives preserves NLN's rich history as the first nursing association in the United States. I encourage you to visit nln.org to learn more about the history of our amazing organization and how to access this wonderful resource. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to every nurse, everywhere, in every role, because you are incredible, you are loved, and I am humbled by your contributions, your impact, and your leadership. Although the last 2 years have been filled with obstacles, nevertheless, it has demonstrated clearly the strength, the courage, the critical role in the impact of the entire nursing profession locally, nationally, and indeed globally. I want to invite each of you to honor a nurse, a mentor, a mentee, or consider leaving a legacy gift to the profession that is the art and science founded on the true love of humanity. Thank you all for your continued support and commitment to nursing education.
Thank you again, Patrick. Now it's time to declare the results of the 2021 election. Before I do so, I would like to thank the current NLN Board of Governors for your continued and outstanding volunteer service to the organization. You have done incredibly good work during exceedingly challenging times. I'd like to acknowledge two former board members who retired in 2020. And through our Zoom technology, we were not able to get that recognition in. One was Dr. Lynette Wilford, and she was not able to be with us today. But I would like to acknowledge Dr. John Lundeen. If you would stand, John. He has been a very dedicated board member, and we're so pleased that he's back here with us. Thank you, John, for your service. I now would also like to acknowledge the outgoing NLN Board of Governors. Those outgoing Board of Governor members, two in absentia, are Dr. Linda Moneyham and Dr. Angela McNeilis. And present with us is Dr. Anne Marie Morrow. Anne Marie, would you thank you? NLN Bylaws, Article 6, Section 5 prescribes procedures that the NLN uses to elect its governing bodies. According to the code of the not-for-profit law under which the NLN is incorporated, members not present vote by proxy, and the proxies are voted by the president, and in this case, meaning the chair. To ensure the integrity of the election process and the security of the online voting process, as independent company performed an accountant's report that documents the election process. To ensure voting confidentiality, the election website was maintained by a Survey and Ballot Systems, Inc. company. No vote was received or handled by any person connected with the National League for Nursing. All elected candidates will take office at the close of this business meeting. At this time, I am officially casting the member proxies and declare that the following elected individuals will take office at the close of the business meeting. Will those members present please stand as I announce your name? And would the rest of us please hold our applause until the declaration is complete. Patricia Sharpnack was elected to the office of NLN Chair-elect. Maja Da El Bana was elected to a 3-year term of the NLN Board of Governors. Audrey Bouvet and Walter Bumpus, who were not able to be present today, were elected to a 3-year term on the NLN Board of Governors. Neutrina Tate and Catherine Williams were elected to the NLN Nominations Committee for a 3-year term. Brenda Morris and Christopher Blackwell, who is not present today, were elected to serve 3-year terms as commissioners on the NLN Certification Commission. This concludes the introduction of all newly elected officials of the National League for Nursing and the NLN Certification Commission. Please join me in applauding our newly elected leaders. I turn now to welcome the incoming board and to officially install the following individuals as members of the NLN Board of Governors. Would you please come forward and join me on the stage as your name is called? The officers: NLN Chair, Kathleen Poindexter. Incoming NLN Chair-elect, Patricia Sharpneck. Treasurer, Ann Krause. Secretary, Cheryl Killian. Governor-at-Large, Maja de Elbana. Mark Hand, Cheryl Hoying, Michael Newsom, Yolanda Van Riel, Mark Voth, and as I mentioned earlier, Audrey Beauvais and Walter Bumpus were not able to join us today. These are your new Board of Governors. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of the investiture ceremony, I am going to read the following pledge, and at its conclusion, you are expected to say, "I do." And then I will pronounce you husband and wife. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong thing. Okay, we hereby pledge our time and talent in support of the mission and goals of the National League for Nursing. In so doing, we will represent the best interests of the organization and will not allow any personal or professional conflicts to interfere with our commitment to the welfare of the National League for Nursing. Please respond by saying, "I do." Thank you very much. This completes the installation of the NLN Board of Governors, and you may be seated. And now it is my privilege to turn the gavel. I will use this Lysol gavel to turn it over to the new chair of NLN. Now, normally the first thing you would do is to present the pin, but I have something that's probably even more important than the pin. This is almost in pristine condition. It is the card to pass into the NLN offices. I probably only used it once or twice before everything was locked down. So, Ariel, note, please. I am passing this off. Take my name off of this. I'm giving this to you. Use it in really good health, please, and actually get to use it. I hope so. Yes, exactly. And now I would love to present to you the Nln Presidential Pin. And I wish you the very best, and wear this in the best of health and do great things for us. I got your number.
I'm most impressed with this. Before I begin my address, let us give a round of applause to our outgoing chair, Nln Patricia Yoder Wise, for her amazing work during her tenure as the National League for Nursing Chair. And I will say she has been absolutely amazing to work with. I have been very privileged. Standing here today, I'm humbled. I never imagined myself standing at this podium presenting the chair's inaugural address, especially amid a pandemic. I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me this privilege and for granting me the opportunity to serve as your chair of the National League for Nursing. I'm truly honored to work alongside my esteemed board colleagues and represent the collective voices of so many dedicated nurse educators. Together, we pledge to advance the NLN's mission to promote excellence in nursing education and to build a diverse nursing workforce to advance the health of our nation and the global community. I also never imagined the challenges associated with navigating a global pandemic or the toll of COVID-19 on such a global scale. And again, I never imagined the devastating impact it would have on our own profession. Through it all, however, I can say that I've never been prouder to call myself a nurse and a nurse educator. We are resilient and we are innovative. As a result of what we have accomplished throughout this pandemic, we can envision a stronger, more agile nursing workforce of the future, prepared by a nursing education process redesigned by advanced practice nurse educators with the knowledge and skills to optimize teaching and learning, built on a strong foundation of rigorous educational research. Just imagine the National League for Nursing, the leaders in nursing education, will continue to be at the forefront of shaping innovative solutions for the future of nursing education. For more than a year and a half, the nation watched the work of nurses and the importance of the care we provided for patients and families. Never has the public been so exposed to the work of nurses as they provided this level of care. The world learned what we already knew. They witnessed the selfless dedication of nurses as they cared for critically ill patients, provided care to the most vulnerable populations isolated in communities, comforted those that were grieving, and advocated for equal access to health care, to simply name a few. The public viewed these highly skilled nurses as heroes and praised them for their selfless contributions. Could you imagine the response of a less educated, prepared nursing workforce? The highly publicized visibility of nurses provides the public with a better understanding of the role of nurses in caring for persons within hospitals and the promotion of health and safety across communities. Today, the nation is observing the devastating effects of COVID-19 on the nursing workforce, the growing nursing shortage, and the impact on access to quality health care. The world is learning what we already knew. What was missing from the news headlines was the invisible work and the tremendous efforts of academic nurse leaders and educators in response to COVID-19. The COVID-19 crisis impacts not only nurses working on the front lines, but also disrupts the normal flow of education programs. This is the crucial pipeline responsible for the preparation and training of the future nursing workforce. During the spring of 2020, the nursing academic program leaders had to make difficult decisions to close in-person learning, pull students from clinical rotations, or explore clinical options to meet student learning needs. There were no written guidelines or prior precedent on how to educate students during a pandemic, and necessary changes in rules and standards lagged behind the immediate crisis period. Difficult decisions were made, all to prioritize the safety of the students, the faculty, and the clinical stakeholders. Could you imagine even more chaos that could have resulted with less prepared, educated academic leaders? Could you imagine if the nurse educators were unable to quickly move their courses online to maintain a seamless educational process for their students? Or if the educators were unwilling to expand their teaching roles to include student counselor, housing advisor, computer technician, and of course, Zoom expert? Even with these drastic changes, many of our nurse educators balance their academic and clinical positions while managing their own personal and family stressors related to COVID-19. Many educators had little experience with distance learning and were seeking their own professional development as they redesigned their courses for online teaching, remaining one step ahead. Access to development courses, software programs, virtual sims, and other materials were often limited due to high costs and strained financial budgets. Can you imagine if nurse educators were less prepared to rapidly adapt to change? The Nln quickly responded to member calls for access to resources, professional development opportunities, and course lessons, all free of charge, of course. As a result, nurse educators across the nation were able to utilize their time to design creative and innovative teaching strategies. They provided students with authentic clinical learning experiences using a variety of tools such as virtual simulation, telehealth, case-based experiences. Imagine re-envisioning teaching to optimize student learning, shaping the future of nursing education. By early summer, several educators developed expanded partnerships with healthcare agencies and community-based organizations. Together, they were able to provide support and resources for COVID-19 testing and the administration of vaccines, education, and wellness checks for members of the vulnerable populations. Imagine new models of clinical education emerging in partnership with healthcare agencies, churches, homeless shelters, and other public health agencies. Innovative nurse educators leveraging their academic resources to become part of the COVID-19 healthcare response teams, turning adversity into opportunities. Nursing students are now able to develop meaningful skills once limited by a hyper-focus on acute care environments, and perhaps in a small way offset some of the devastating effects of health inequality plaguing this great nation. Imagine re-envisioning teaching to optimize student learning to reshape the future of nursing education. In addition to fulfilling teaching responsibilities, nurse educators continue to provide individual support for students struggling with technology resources, housing, learning, threats to their overall well-being. Imagine nurse educators among the ranks of supported, valued, and recognized heroes as they continue to deliver educational learning activities while navigating unfamiliar and unprecedented times. It's no secret the future of the nursing workforce and preparation for practice relies on the quality of nursing education programs. Nurse educators are the strength and the foundation of all of these programs. They are instrumental in designing and delivering quality programs that prepare future nurses with the skills required to meet the complex care needs of a global society. But we as educators already know this. As the pandemic persists, the nation is now witnessing the devastating effects of nursing shortage on the overall delivery of healthcare. News media report nurses are overwhelmed, exhausted, and experiencing burnout, leading some to retire to seek new positions or leave the profession altogether. As a result, hundreds of nursing positions remain open, leaving many agencies short-staffed. Despite disparaging news from this workforce, the number of aspiring nurses persists, with applications to nursing schools at an all-time high. How do you imagine the future of their workforce? The headlines are now calling attention to the nurse educator shortage and limitations on nursing student enrollments contributing to the nursing shortage. Nursing applicants far exceed nursing school program capacity, turning away more than 80,000 qualified applicants annually. We know that it is limited by a shortage of nurse educators, competition for clinical sites, clinical preceptors, and limited resources. But then again, the world is learning what we already knew. Now together, let us reimagine nursing education. The nursing shortage is complex, multifaceted, with human resource capacity at its core. According to the latest statistics, over 1 million registered nurses are expected to retire within the next 10 years, and 1/3 of nurse educators anticipate retiring within the next 5. Healthcare needs of our aging population, further complicated with persons suffering the long-term effects of COVID-19 infections, will continue to grow and increase in complexity. Our populations are more diverse, and a greater emphasis on care is shifting to illness prevention and community care models. There's a growing need to prepare more nurses for specialty practices in home care, schools, and public health centers. Together, we must reimagine nursing education to prepare a more sustainable, agile, resilient, and qualified, diverse nursing workforce of the future. This will require bold, transformative innovations and redesigned nursing education models that support seamless academic progression across all specialties and all degrees. The Nln, as the leader in nursing education, is positioned to re-envision the future of education and lead transformative innovations based on evidence-based teaching strategies. The Nln has been instrumental in supporting preparation of advanced practice nurse educators, educational research, and the integration of technology and simulation to promote excellence in nursing education. The magnitude of the nursing workforce crisis and impact on the health of our nation and global society has the attention of healthcare leaders and policy advocates across the globe. Multiple reports have been published addressing the state of nursing, the future of nursing, preparation for practice, and faculty roles that have the potential to reform nursing education and workforce development. I call on all of you, please, to familiarize yourself with the reports published by the World Health Organization, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, the National Advisory Council on Nurse Education and Practice, International Council on Nurse Education Practice, American Organization for Nursing Leadership, and of course those published by our own National League for Nursing. The world is aware of the value in the contributions of nurses to the health of a global society. We need strong nursing education voices at the forefront to reimagine and lead transformative change and redefine the future of nursing and nursing education. The preparation of qualified nursing workforce in numbers sufficient to meet population healthcare needs begins with nursing education. And as stated earlier, the mission of the Nln is the promotion of excellence in nursing, to build a strong and diverse nursing workforce to advance the health of our nation and the global community, operationalized by their 4 core values: diversity, integrity, caring, and excellence. The Nln will continue to lead the advancement of nursing education, research, simulation, and preparation of advanced practice nurse educators, just in case you didn't hear that the first time. Together, let us all imagine the future of nursing education and join the Nln to advance the following initiatives. Strengthen education curricula to promote health equity, reduce inequalities, and improve overall health and well-being across diverse populations. Recruit, support, and mentor faculty and students from diverse backgrounds to reflect the communities that we serve. Support seamless progression, diversity, and excellence across all levels of education. Provide evidence-based resources and support integration of technology to optimize virtual learning environments, virtual simulation, and artificial intelligence. Recognize, support, and value the specialized knowledge of academically prepared nurse educators. And support educational research to advance nursing education and develop evidence-based teaching innovations and competency-based models. My academic nurse leader and nurse educator colleagues, I call upon you to engage with me in futuristic thinking to reimagine the future of nursing education. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am very honored. Thank you. Thank you. They're beautiful. That's Dr. Terry Werewine. She was, I have to say, one of my biggest supporters and advocates, and she hired me years and years ago in one of my earlier teaching roles and has been a tremendous support. As we talked about earlier, if you were at the faculty meeting, everybody needs those strong mentors and those people that believe in you, and she was one for me. So I thank you, Dr. Werewine.